All right, let's get some more perspective here in this country, here in the U.S. I want to bring in the mayor of Miami Beach, Philip Levine. Mayor, thank you so much for being with us. So I believe you did actually hear our reporter just there, Patrick Ottman, on the ground there in Havana. He was basically saying that, listen, when you look at the rhetoric was really tough, but the actions, the actual policy wasn't as bad as what some people may have been fearing. I mean, given what Trump promised during the campaign, were you expecting more of a rollback?
No, I think that's pretty much what I think a lot of us were expecting, Hussein. But you know what's amazing? Over 60% of Cuban Americans in Miami would like to see a continuation of the engagement policy. It's so important. You know, last year I went with Tufts University, the Fletcher School of Diplomacy, with President Obama. I went to Cuba. I was there firsthand. I saw what was going on. You know, the idea is this. No one wants the existing situation the way it is. We all would like to see freedom. We all would like to see human rights brought to Cuba. So I think we're all on the same page. The question is, how do we get there? And I'm of the belief that engagement, capitalism, entrepreneurship, and allowing the Cuban people the opportunity to help themselves. So my concern is that, you know, business doesn't like ambiguity. Business doesn't like confusion. The tentacles of this is so confusing that I believe a lot of Americans are not going to want to go, because think about this. If you didn't go with a group, if somehow you violated the law, you're liable for up to 5 years. Now, you can't go in a group and stay in Airbnb. Airbnb is responsible for, like, I think $40 million of entrepreneurial revenue that went right into Cuban citizens' hands. So that's a big concern going forward.
So, yeah, it's interesting because when these commercial flights started, I think the perception initially was that there was going to be business. There were going to be a lot more people willing to travel to Cuba. But there are people who are afraid because the policies can be quite complicated. As you mentioned, the penalty if you get this wrong can be quite severe. So, I mean, you know, just from President Trump's perspective, he's talked about this deal being one-sided. He's talked about the fact that, listen, he's not going to stop until political prisoners are freed and that there are free elections. There are a lot of people who would listen to that speech today and say, you know what? He has a point. There might not necessarily be anything so wrong with what he's saying after all.
Well, I think we all agree we'd like to see political prisoners. We'd like to see human rights. But we have to also look at our history. We've had 50, 60 years of this policy of isolation. And guess what? It has not worked. So I think the policy of President Obama was fully one-sided, but it was on the side of the Cuban people. How do we help those 11 million people? Then we have a choice. And let me put it this way. We could either see Chinese and Russian naval vessels.
How do we help them?
Let me talk about that. We do it through engagement, through entrepreneurism. We allow them to help themselves. Airbnb, businesses, bringing in tourism. If you make it confusing and it's scary for tourists to go, all Cuban citizens will be affected. And let me make one more point. We have a choice for national security. We can either allow Chinese and Russian naval vessels in the harbor in Havana, or we can allow Royal Caribbean, Carnival, and Norwegian Cruise Line ships in the harbor in Havana. We have a choice to make. I think we go with the Velvet Navy, the cruise industry, and let's change them from within. Help those 11 million people. Don't isolate them.
All right, Patrick Levine, you made your point very clear. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, sir.
Thank you.